Hi everyone, this is Stephanie from the Pasadena Public Library, and today I'm going to show you how to make a bifold wallet like this one here. It's got these pockets that face towards the center of the wallet so your cards won't fall out, and it's got a magnetic snap right here. So this was adapted from a free pattern from Modest Maven. I have linked the original pattern in the description below. So here are the supplies that you'll need. You'll need to download the pattern in the description below, and then if you're doing magnetic snaps, you'll want a set of those. For installing your magnetic snaps, you'll need a water-soluble marker, a seam ripper, and possibly a hammer. I also have my cutting tools, and I have 3 fat quarters of fabric, one for my exterior, lining, and my pocket. And if you want, you can use all the same fabric. You just need about half a yard of quilting cotton if you're going to use all the same. Additionally, you'll need about a 1/4 yard of interfacing. I'm using Craft Fuse Pellon 808. You could also use SF 101, just some sort of medium weight interfacing to give your wallet a bit of stiffness. So I've gone ahead and cut everything out. So I've cut 2 exterior panels that are 5 inches by 9 inches, and then for those I've also cut the interfacing slightly smaller, so it's 4.5 by 8.5. I've got my lining fabric, which is 4.5 by 9 inches, and my pocket fabric, which is 5 inches by 19 inches. Then I have 2 of my tabs cut out and 2 interfacing pieces cut out, and you can see I've just cut the interfacing about 1/8 of an inch smaller all the way around to reduce the bulk in the seam allowance. Now I'm going to fuse my fusible interfacing to the wrong sides of my tabs. So just go ahead and lay your tabs with the wrong side of the fabric facing up, and then find which side of your interfacing has the glue on it. It'll be the shiny side usually, and then I'm going to lay that face down centered on the tab. Then I like to use a press cloth, so you just take a scrap of muslin or any other lightweight cloth and get it damp, and then you just hold your iron in place without really moving it for 10 to 15 seconds, and then check to see if it has fused. If not, you can hold it on a little longer, and you'll just continue with that until the entire area is fused. Now we'll do the same thing with our exterior panels. Just place your fusible interfacing glue side against the wrong side of your exterior panels. Place a press cloth on top and get it damp. And because this is a bigger area, we'll have to do it in sections. So I'll just hold it on one area for 15 seconds, lift it up, and hold it a few inches over until the entire area is fused. Now I want to mark some of my pattern marks onto my fabric, so particularly the snap placement mark. So I'm just going to take an awl, or you could take a pen or something, and just poke a hole right in the center of that snap placement mark. Now I'm just going to transfer that mark to the wrong side of my panel here. You only need to do it with one of the panels, which will end up being the exterior. Now I'll do the same with one of my tab pieces. To reinforce my magnetic snaps even further, I'm going to add a 1-inch square of fusible fleece interfacing. You could also just use a little piece of felt, and I'm just going to place it right where that snap placement is. I've trimmed off the top corners just so that those don't get in the way of my stitching at all. I don't want too much bulk in my seam allowance, and I'm just going to fuse this the same way that I fused my other interfacing. Once I've fused it to my tab, I'll do the same thing with the snap placement mark on my exterior panel. Now that I've added that fusible fleece, I'm just going to mark the snap placement one more time really quickly. And I'm going to use that little dot as the center point. Then you're going to take the backing piece. So it'll look like this little flat disc, and I'm going to lay it on top, lining up the center. And then use your marker to mark those two little holes on the sides where the prongs are going to go. Now take your seam ripper and carefully cut open those two slashes there for the prongs. It's better to cut them a little smaller than you might need than to cut them too big. For your tab, you'll want the side that has the little piece sticking out, and you're going to push that through from the right side so the prongs are sticking out on the back side. Now go ahead and press those prongs flat. You can press them towards the center or you can press them out, it doesn't really matter. If you want to get those prongs extra flat, you can hammer this. To prevent our snap from getting scratched up, I'm just going to lay some fabric down underneath and then tap this with my hammer. If you don't have a hammer, you can probably just press this flat. Now I'm going to do the same thing with this exterior panel here. This time I'm going to attach the other end of the magnetic snap, the one that has the indent inside of it. Now I'm just going to pin some of my pieces together, so pin your two tab pieces right sides together and pin your two lining pieces right sides together. For the lining, we just need to pin along the sides and the bottom edge. The top is going to be left unstitched for now. You're also going to leave about a 3-inch area along the bottom edge of the lining unstitched. So as a reminder, I'm just marking a 3-inch area along the bottom here, so I'll leave that unstitched. So the seam allowance for the tab piece is 1/4 inch, so I stitched all the way around the tab at a 1/4 inch, leaving the bottom straight edge unstitched. Then clip your curves and trim your seam allowance in half. Now I'm turning it right side out and I'm going to give it a press. Then top stitch around the tab at 1/8 of an inch. When I'm top stitching around that thick tab, I start by stitching on some scrap fabric and then I start stitching directly onto the tab. I'm also just pivoting with the needle down, lifting up my presser foot anytime I need to turn my fabric a little bit. Now I'm going to stitch the lining using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm starting at the bottom center where I made one of my marks, and I'm going to stitch across the bottom and up towards the top of the lining. Then I'll repeat going from the other side down to the center again. Remember that we're leaving the top completely unsewn and you're leaving that 3-inch area along the bottom edge unsewn. Now let's make the pockets. Take one pocket panel and have it so that it is laying wrong side facing up. Fold over one short edge towards the wrong side of the fabric at 4 inches and press. Now you'll want to grab an old gift card or loyalty card to help you size your pockets. With the right side of the fabric facing up, place your gift card along the folded edge of the fabric. Flip the long edge of the fabric up and over the gift card, then press in place. You don't want to do this with a card that you plan on using again, as it can distort the card. Now fold the long edge of the fabric back down so that the folded edge is 1/2 inch below the folded edge above. I'm just going to measure that and then press that in place. And that is our first pocket. We're going to repeat these steps 2 more times so that we have 3 pockets on this one piece of fabric. So for pocket number 2, I've placed my card right at the top of the second fold, and then I've flipped that long edge up and over the card, and I'm going to press that in place. Then flip the long piece back down, and again we want it to be 1/2 inch below the last fold. Now for pocket number 3, we just do it the same way. So I place my gift card right here, lined up with the last fold I made, then flip up this edge, press it in place, then flip this edge down so that this fold is now 1/2 inch below the last one. And that should be all 3 of the pockets done. Now most likely your pocket will need to be trimmed down slightly. So just flipping it over to the back side again, this fold here should have been done at 4 inches. So that should be the right size, but I'm just double checking. And then I'm just going to trim off this excess here. This is just here just in case you do your folds a little bit differently, not quite at 1/2 inch. It's better to just trim it down afterwards. So that's why there's a little extra there. So that's one pocket done. You'll want to repeat with your other pocket panel so you have 2 identical pieces. Now to hold those folds in place, I am stay stitching along the sides of this pocket at 1/4 inch. Now take your exterior panel, the one that doesn't have a snap, and lay it face up. Then place your pocket panels on top with the pockets opening towards the center of the panel. You're going to baste in place all the way around at 1/4 inch. So now we have all of our individual pieces ready to assemble. You've got the exterior panel with the snap, your lining, you've got the pocket panel and the tab piece as well. So next let's attach this tab. Centered along the right edge of your pocket panel, you'll want to pin your tab in place with the snap facing down towards the pockets. Baste the tab in place at 1/4 inch. Now you're going to place your other exterior panel, the one with the snap, right sides together with your pocket panel. You should have a tab on one end and the snap on the other end. Pin in place along the sides and the bottom. Stitch around the exterior panel sides and the bottom edge at 1/2 inch, leaving the top edge unsewn. Clip those bottom corners and trim your seam allowance in half at least. Turn right side out, then push out the corners and press flat. Your exterior should be right side out, and your lining should be wrong side out. Place the exterior inside the lining. It can be helpful to fold up the bottom of your exterior as they are slightly longer than the lining. Then pin the lining to the exterior around the top opening all the way around, making sure to match up the side seams. Now we'll stitch around the entire circumference of the top at 1/2 inch. Now trim your corners, and you're going to pull the wallet out through the hole in the bottom of the lining. Push out the corners on the lining. And you'll give the bottom of the lining a press with your iron, making sure that the seam allowances are going towards the inside of the lining. Then we'll edge stitch along the bottom edge to close up this hole. Push the lining inside of the wallet and press your wallet flat. Now top stitch around the top edge at 1/8 of an inch. Again, this is a little tricky because we're stitching around such a small circumference. But just take it a little piece at a time, and you'll stitch all the way around the top edge. I suggest using some folded up fabric to level out your presser foot when you go to sew over the area where the side seam is, because this can be pretty bulky. Optionally, you can top stitch around the sides and the bottom edge of the wallet at 1/8 of an inch. You want to be careful not to top stitch too far from the edge, or your credit cards may not fit in the pockets. It can be a little difficult to start top stitching along that top edge where the wallet is really thick. Instead, I started top stitching at the bottom center, I backstitch, and then I stitch up to the top corner. If you're worried that your sewing machine can't handle something so thick, you can always skip the last top stitching step. And again, you'll just want to use a seam jack like I'm using here, or some folded over fabric to help you level out your presser foot, especially when you pivot around that corner. Again, as I'm approaching this really thick top edge of the wallet, I'm leveling out my foot again with my seam jack. Now I'm just going to top stitch going in the opposite direction, starting from the bottom center and going up to the other corner. And when you're done, you'll have your wallet with the card pockets that open towards the center of the wallet so it won't fall out. And we've got the area for your bills and the nice snap on the outside. And because of the interfacing, it's got a nice weight to it. All right, happy sewing!